We are on the 37th sutra. Let's just get right on into it. These powers are obstacles to the highest spiritual realization, but serve as magical powers in the objective worlds. And these powers that we're talking about are from the previous sutra. And these are, this is what we're looking at here. These, you could go ahead and take a look back and go through them. So now we know where they're at and what we're talking about, at least. One fact continuously emerges in this textbook of spiritual development, and that is that the psychic powers, higher and lower, are hindrances to the highest spiritual state and must be left behind by the man who can function freed from the three worlds altogether. This is a hard lesson for the aspirant to grasp. He is apt to think that a tendency towards clairvoyance and clairaudience is indicative of progress and a sign that his practice of meditation is beginning to take effect. It might prove just the opposite, and inevitably will, should the aspirant be attracted by or attached to any of these forms of psychic faculty. An old Hindu writer says, in connection with these powers, a mind whose mind stuff is emergent thinks highly of these perfections, just as a man born in misery considers even a small bit of wealth a pile of wealth. But a yogin whose mind stuff is concentrated must avoid these perfections, even when brought near to him. One who longs for the final goal of life, the absolute assuagement of the threefold anguish, how could he have any affection for those perfections which go counter to the attainment of that goal? And this has been said in many of the books, right? We're looking past these things. These are not the attainment of that, of the consciousness we're going to. It is quiet, is my, is what I'm gathering. It's quiet, and there's not a lot of thought going on there. There's not, you're looking for things as significance comes across. You're observing the screen, and we're not getting into the details at that point. And if I might add, and this is, I'm gonna add this. I was put onto these books by Carla, and let's see, you can see this. It's called Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East by Baird T. Spalding. Very illuminating book. And he basically explains, this exact thing kind of comes up, but also later on, these masters have these powers, and they're there for use, essentially, after being established in the higher consciousness. So there's no need to basically go into it now, or try to get in there, get to these things. They will come as needed, and they're there. The occult powers described hitherto and to be described hereafter serve as obstacles because they become the cause of distracting the mind by the various feelings they excite. But they are not quite useless, in as much as they are great powers for good in moments when samadhi is suspended. It is of value to the aspirant to know what these powers are, how to control them and not be controlled by them, and how to use them in service of his brother and of the hierarchy, but they must be regarded as instruments and be relegated to the form side. It must be realized that they are the qualities or capacities of the sheaths, or the form aspect. Otherwise, they will assume undue importance, engross undue attention, and prove stumbling blocks to the progress of soul unfoldment. So we got it. We got our body, we're going straight ahead. We're not taking any side streets. All right, the 38th Sutra. By liberation from the causes of bondage through their weakening and by an understanding of the mode of transference, withdrawal or entrance, the mind stuff or chitta can enter another body. The entire science of Raja Yoga is based upon an understanding of the nature, purpose, and function of the mind. The basic law of this science can be summed up in the words energy follows thought, and the sequence of activity might be stated as follows. Oh, this is going to be, we've been talking about energy following thought since the beginning. And it's so huge to understand that and to have the experience of it, to know it, and then as we know it, to make sure that we're careful with it. It's something to be reverenced in a sense, right? Or something to take care and be careful about. While we're still susceptible to the lower expressions at minimum. The thinker on his own plane formulates a thought embodying some purpose or some desire. The mind vibrates in response to this idea and simultaneously produces a corresponding reaction in the kamic, desire, or emotional body. The energy body, the etheric sheath, vibrates synchronously, and thereby the brain responds and energizes the nerve system throughout the dense physical body so that the impulse of the thinker works out into physical plane activity. There's a close connection between the mind and the nervous system so that we have an interesting triplicity, the mind, the brain, and the nervous system. And this triplicity must be carefully borne in mind by the student of Raja Yoga in the initial stage of his work. Later, a second triplicity will engross his attention: the thinker, the mind, and the brain. But this will be during the demonstration side of his work. Impulse of the thinker works out into physical plane activity. So you have to be very careful. And this is something that I got from these books as well. I spent some time reading them last night. And they referenced the master who's in this book here is always referencing expressing Christ. And he who is expressing Christ is Christ, and to be expressing these high attributes, and that's basically giving up the lower in a big way. Because if you're aware of what is working out into your physical plane activity, we need to look at these things to see if they are expressing Christ, and if they're not, what use are they, and is it something that we should be looking to let go of? So and then in total, as this comes around, what you see in the life of the masters is that they're expressing Christ on a full-time basis. There's no there's no moment of their life that is looking elsewhere. There's no selfishness. There's only selflessness. That doesn't mean, I'm sure, and I've been told, it doesn't mean they don't live what would appear to be a semi-normal, regulated life. It's just that their life is always a reflection of the higher, of the higher expression. It's always a higher expression. It's always Christ-like. So it's something to really ponder on this here. And of course, connect. So then we can see how this, we have this interesting triplicity. These things work, how things are working out. And then I want to say we can assume when we get to the thinker, now we are thinking as Christ, like, right? Because we're higher up on this. We're beyond the mind. We're up in the Buddhic plane here at some point, eventually, whenever this comes around. And we're expressing the life of Christ, and we're receiving the impulses to do so, what's needed to do it as it comes down. It is through an understanding of the method of energizing the nerves that the thinker can galvanize its instrument into activity during incarnation, and similarly produce trance, samadhi, or death. The same basic knowledge enables the adept to raise a dead body, as Christ did in Palestine, or occupy the vehicle of a disciple for purposes of service, as Christ occupied the body of the disciple Jesus. This knowledge and its use, we are told, is subject to the great law of karma, of cause and effect, and even the Christ himself may not set the law aside in any case unless there is adequate weakening of the cause producing the bondage. So really, in order to be expressing Christ, we need to be living a clean existence. Let's go on here. By subjugation of the upward life, this Donna here, I don't know, I've never seen that word before, but I remember. There is liberation from water, the thorny path, and mire, and the power of ascension is gained. Pervading the whole body is that sum total of nervous force called by the Hindu prana. It is controlled by the mind via the brain. It is the vitality which brings into activity the sense organs and produces the outward going life of the man. Its medium of distribution is the nervous system through certain great distributing centers called plexi or lotuses. The nerve ganglia, known to Orthodox medicine, are the reflections or shadows of the more vital plexi. And these are nerve bundles, basically. And I don't, I was in the military, and we used to teach military style hand-to-hand combat, or military combatives, or whatever, some type of martial arts. And we had to understand, you have to understand the body and the nervous system in order, in strange ways, and because you can inflict pain with minimal effort to subdue a person. Now, this is that's an interesting thing I said. So you're using minimal effort to inflict the most pain, but without damaging the person, right? To basically subdue them for temporarily until they're under some level of control. And there are these nerve bundles, and it's very interesting because you can identify these, and we use them. So if you can look at a map of the human body, essentially, we can look and see where these nerve ganglia, these plexus are located. We call nerve bundles. The student will not go far astray if he regards the sum total of prana in the human body as constituting the vital or etheric body. And okay, so the nerve ganglia are the reflections or shadows of the more vital plexi. So if we can, look behind this, the human nervous system, essentially, and we can really see potentially what we're looking at here. And the sum total of prana in the human body is constituting the vital or etheric body. This etheric body is formed entirely of energy currents and is the substratum of living substance which underlies the dense physical form. One term applied to this energy is the vital airs. Prana is fivefold in its manifestation, thus corresponding to the 5 states of mind, the 5th principle, and to the 5 modifications of the thinking principle. Prana in the solar system works out as the 5 great states of energy, which we call planes, the medium of consciousness, and these are the atmic or spiritual plane, which is right here, what we're looking at here, the 3rd, the Buddhic, the mental, the emotional, and the physical. So we're talking about these 5 down here. And these 5 are the 5 great states of energy, which we call planes, the medium of consciousness. 5 differentiations of prana in the human body are prana extending from the nose to the heart and having special relation to the mouth and speech, the heart and lungs. Samana extends from the heart to the solar plexus. It concerns food and the nourishing of the body through the medium of food and drink and has special relation to the stomach. Apana controls the solar plexus to the soles of the feet. It concerns the organs of elimination, of rejection, and of birth, thus having special relation to the organs of generation and of elimination. Vipana is found between the nose and the top of the head, has a special relation to the brain, the nose, and the eyes, and when properly controlled, produces the coordination of the vital airs and their correct handling. Vyana is the term applied to the sum total of pranic energy, and it's distributed evenly throughout the entire body. Its instruments are the thousands of nadis or nerves found in the body, and it has a peculiar, definite connection with the blood channels, the veins, and arteries. I don't know if anybody ever seen that display that they had, like the human body, that where they had it pretty, they had essentially dissected humans, right? I forget what that exhibit was called, but I did go many years ago. I guess it would have been 15, 16 years ago or something like that, 17 years ago. And maybe 17. That's what I'm thinking of as I'm reading this, is the nerves, right? Looking like lightning flowing through the body, and then the veins and the arteries, and how this thing is built up. And then it's interesting. All right, so in this sutra, we are told that by mastery of the fourth of these vital errors, certain definite results can be achieved, and it'll be interesting to note what they are. The fourth of these vital errors, vipana, between the nose and the top of the head, has a special relation to the brain, the nose, and the eyes, and when properly controlled, produces the coordination of the vital errors and their correct handling. All right, so by the mastery of the fourth of these vital errors, certain definite results can be achieved, and it will be interesting to note what they are. This mastery only becomes possible as the Raja Yoga system is understood and mastered, for it involves the capacity to function in the head and to control the entire nature from the point within the brain. When a man becomes polarized there, then the nervous force or energy found in the top of the head becomes active, and through its correct control and through mastery of it, the right direction of the pranas of the body becomes possible, and man reaches liberation. Through it, non-contact in the three worlds is brought about. The language used is necessarily symbolic of its meaning, and its meaning must not be lost through a materializing of its real significance. Levitation, the power to walk on water, and the ability to withstand gravitational pull of the earth is its lowest and least important significance. Freedom from water as a symbolic way of stating that the astral nature is subjugated and the great waters of illusion can no longer hold the emancipated soul. The energies of the solar plexus no longer dominate. Two, liberation from the thorny path refers to the path of physical life, and is nowhere more beautifully referred to than by the Christ in his parable of the sowers, where some of the seed fell among thorns. The explanation is given that the thorns are the cares and troubles of worldly existence, which succeed in choking the spiritual life and in veiling the true man for so long. The thorny path must lead to the northern path, and that in turn to the path of initiation. In one of the old books in the archives of the lodge are found these words: "Let the seeker after truth escape from drowning and climb the river's bank. Let him turn towards the northern star and on firm ground stand, his face directed towards the light. Then let the star lead." Liberation from the mire refers to that mixed nature of kama manas, desire, and lower mind, which is right here. All right, we can call this right here kama manas, which causes the unique problem of humanity. Lots of glamour, lots of illusion, and this is all stuff that we've read in the previous books. It is a symbolic way also of referring to the great illusion which snares the pilgrim for so long. Maya, right, the dweller on the threshold, all these things. When the aspirant can walk in the light, having found the light, the Shekinah, within himself in the Holy of Holies, then the illusion is dissipated. It is of value to note, it is of value to the student to trace the analogy between the three parts of Solomon's temple and that of the temple of the Holy Spirit, the human frame. Trace the analogy. All right, it's also referred to as the cave, right? The cave of Brahma, and it's been referenced probably many different ways. The outer court corresponds to those energies and their corresponding organs found below the diaphragm. The holy place is the centers and organs in the upper part of the body from the throat to the diaphragm. The Holy of Holies is the head where the throne of God, the mercy seat, and the overshadowing glory. I'm sorry, let me read that again. The Holy of Holies is the head where is the throne of God, the mercy seat, and the overshadowing glory. When these three aspects of freedom have been gained and the man is no longer dominated by the water, the mire or physical plane life, then the power of ascension is gained and he can ascend into heaven at will. The Christ or spiritual man can stand upon the mountain of ascension, having passed through the four crises or points of control from the birth to the crucifixion. Thus, the udana or upward life becomes the controlling factor and the downward life no longer dominates. And dominate, being probably a key word there, because no, it's not to say it doesn't continue, that there isn't an apparent physical plane life as far as we know. There is. It's not, these things are not dominating. They're being used as a field of service, more or less. That's how I understand it. Let's continue. Now, and look, this stage here also, just it should stick out to us that walking on the waters of the astral plane or over the astral plane, this is where kama manas is put away, essentially. And, this is the stream entry of the Buddhist, or going down to the Jordan and being lifted out of the waters and all this. And this is the second initiation. So we have the first initiation, right? And now we have the second initiation. And this is where the things of the desire nature fall below the threshold, essentially. And that's something that can be read much more deeply throughout the blue books, discussed in Initiation Human and Solar, discussed in Treatise on White Magic. It's the purpose, and it's what the Treatise on White Magic is for, is to get us past the kama manas and past the second initiation. And then we can read it in Rays and Initiations, and we can read it in Treatise on Cosmic Fire from a different perspective. So there's much that can be learned about what exactly we're talking about here, and it was put in even in the more modern books, which I want to say Rays and Initiations was the last book, and that was the last book of the Treatise on the Seven Rays. So you can't really can't go to we could talk about the blue books all day, and what the significance. So freedom from water. All right, we got this. This is all great stuff. It's all about that transference from the lower to the higher. Right? So the subjugation of the samana, the spark becomes the flame. And well, we just went samana is samana extends from the heart to the solar plexus. It concerns food and the nourishing of the body through the medium of food and drink. It has special relation to the stomach. Okay, so now we go. Through subjugation of that, the spark becomes the flame. This sutra is one of the most beautiful in the book, and the translation by Charles Johnson should here be noted. By mastery of the binding life comes radiance. Another interpretation might be, through control of samana, the Om, the word of glory, manifests. Out of the heart are the issues of life. Out of the heart are the issues of life, and the vital energy called samana controls the heart and the life breath through the lungs. When the body is purified and its energy is rightly directed, and when rhythm is achieved, then a radiant life is seen. This will work out literally and not simply metaphorically, for when the life currents are directed by the soul upon the throne, through the nerves and the blood channels, then only the purest atoms will be built into the body, and the result will be a shining forth of light through the entire man. Oh, that is so incredibly deep. All right, what type of atoms are we building into the body? What are we building into it? That's very deep, and this will reflect in your personal life. No judgment coming from here whatsoever. I'm shining a little light on our habits, but there's absolutely no judgment, because we've all been through that, right? We all know how the lower nature has its control for a time, and that's necessary, and it's there as a challenge, and then it is overcome over time. What are we expressing, and what atom, what level of atoms are we building in? And then, this is incredible, man. Then only when the soul, when we hit that higher level, directed by the soul upon the throne through the nerves and the blood channels, only the purest atoms will be built into the body, and the result will be a shining forth of light through the entire man. Not only will the head be radiating light, so that the clairvoyant will see a halo or circle of brilliant colors, but all the body will be irradiated by the vibrant centers of electrical force distributed throughout the body. If the light of thine eye be single, then the whole body will be full of light. Luke 11:34. All right, I'm gonna leave it there for today. That's a good stopping point. If you noticed, I don't set a certain amount of time generally every day. I try to, we fit our study time in, and I like to put things together. It's my personal thing to reach a good stopping point where a thought form can set for the rest of the day, and a good breaking point where we can move on the next day, if at all possible, into a clear, coherent kind of study. And don't get me wrong, this isn't this is generally a morning study. This is the primary study, but there are also other studies going on as we're doing this too. Just so this is the most important to me right now, if that's a thing, right? This is the primary study. All of these things being shifted over to the chart, right? In a symbolical way, and understanding putting all of the study that we've done to date and everything I've put in this to the mind, moving it into seeing it from the bigger picture, which this chart, the 7 planes, constitution of man, the cosmic physical plane chart, and understanding our Father in heaven, the spiritual triad, hierarchy, and the personality really helps. So, we're looking back at the energies. So astrology is always part of the study. It's always built in. It can be correlated to the chart. And it's on time. So our life is a study daily. The awareness of the happenings and the significance, the meaning of events, the reason for events. If we can get to the to see the significance of them, which maybe we don't, but we remain aware and really just observing. That is what we're doing throughout the day. We're trying to observe from higher, and just be. We're learning to be, and to be consciousness. Sat shit or not, we're being consciousness, bliss. We're being the consciousness. We're learning to I don't know how to say it. It's so interesting. I'm learning. We're learning together, how to be at that level of consciousness where that's all there is. And so it's very quiet. And we've probably at this point learned that thinking doesn't really do us any good, personality wise. We're not thinking anymore. There's no real good reason. Our predilections are shrinking, if you could say, if there's any left. They're going away. And we're trying to have this equilibrium where we're doing things, and throughout our life, things get done and we're watching it. So this is our study. And this is, probably what Raja Yoga is really. It's life. It's built into the life. And it's bringing us up higher. This work here we know is important. Spending time doing spiritual reading, spending the time talking about God and Christ and higher planes, and bringing ourselves up to those levels, and just keeping that awareness of the higher life throughout the day. And I say awareness, but not necessarily a thinking, just a being. Just being clear and observing is being the consciousness. It's so amazing. And we're so thankful for these teachings, and being able to pull them all together and synthesize them, and have in that synthesis a real foundation of what is going on the physical plane in terms of, these teachings. It was important to synthesize this, so we can really let it, recognize it, and then be able to talk to it and move on. So, all right. leave it there. Have a great day, and we'll get back at it with the 41st Sutra tomorrow. Right. Bye.